Boss, at midnight today, my space suddenly went online. I just searched for it, and I was already able to register and enter. On the phone, Fitz was making a report. How's their website doing? Eric asked as he opened Google and found it at the top of the first page in an instant. Needless to say, being able to be so fast and accurate must be stuffing Google with money. Clicking on the link, Eric found that the interface was still slightly similar to Facebook. Facebook's biggest slogan is, "Welcome to Facebook." And the slogan in the middle of the screen is, "Join MySpace." Boss, I haven't been experiencing it for a long time, but although I also use my email to apply for an account, MySpace implements an anonymous system. Users don't need any real information, let alone a social security account. Even their name, address, education, job, etc. can be filled in casually and finally put a nickname. Eric suddenly laughed. Anonymous. What do you think about such a stupid setting, playing social without real name system? Who knows if there is a cat behind the computer? It is true that the real name system will bring the risk of user privacy leakage, but the relative authenticity is also the most important cornerstone of social networks. Although anonymity reduces the risk of user information leakage, it will greatly increase the problem in other aspects. For example, perverts pretend to be underage phishing friends and then seduce and trick each other into committing crimes. For example, engaging in online fraud, as well as money laundering, selling contraband, etc., anonymity can provide a strong protection for these criminal acts. And this kind of criminal behavior is like a contagion. Once a few people start to do it, it often gives birth to a small group of people and then attracts a large number of people. It even brings in real criminal organizations, which seriously disrupts the user experience and atmosphere. What Eric can think of, Fitz can think of too. But instead of laughing, he said in a serious tone, "Boss, although the anonymity system will cause a lot of problems, I don't think it's stupid. One thing that is more attractive than the real name system is that it can attract users more effectively. After all, camouflage is the nature of the internet. An email address is just an email address that anyone can apply for, even if they are a few years old. MySpace is more attractive than us in terms of user attraction for all ages." Eric snorted, "It's okay. Don't be upset about this kind of problem. The key is to do a good job of user experience. What we have to do is to update normally, maintain normally, do a good job of internal review, and as long as we don't have problems, the other party will definitely have problems. Because they're chasers, they're more anxious, and if they're in a weak position all the time, they're bound to make mistakes. What about Facebook's user data right now?" After a pause, Fitz replied, "The number of registered users has reached about 17 million at present, an increase of about 4 million since the beginning of this month, and the number of active users who log in frequently in a week is about 13 million. At present, judging from the user portraits, the main group is still college students, but it has also begun to expand to high school students and wage earners. It's just that the growth rate can't be compared with last month, and now the number of new users per week is about 3%. Last month's total was 190 million visits, and this month I would have expected to break through 250 million. But with MySpace's competition, we may not be able to reach that number unless we do something about it." "What do you want to do?" asked Eric. "For example, the celebrity fan selection event you explained to you should have been held at the beginning of this month, but we have waited for so long. Aren't we just waiting for MySpace to be launched? In addition, I think we can start the promotion plan in major high schools. The number of college students is close to saturation, and we need to expand into new territories. In addition to middle schools, there are also major companies, organizations, and groups, and I think Silicon Valley is a good place to experiment. People here are the most receptive to new things, especially on the web side, and we can work with companies in Silicon Valley to do internal promotion." "Boss, what do you think?" Fitz said as Eric considered the feasibility of his proposal and after a few minutes said, "Let's start the middle school promotion first, and the company and the group side will hold off. I don't think it's a very good direction. People in our country like to separate life and work. Work is already tiring and frustrating, and no one likes to be friends with their boss and boss online. What if they arrange a job for you in the air? The boss sent a message. Do you, as an employee, want to comment on him? Everyone else has commented on the sycophancy, and if you don't comment, will the boss have an opinion about you? For example, Fitz, you planned to go to a concert and you took sick leave, and after watching it, you excitedly want to post a dynamic to show off. But when you think that there are your colleagues and bosses among your friends, do you dare to send it? Fitz suddenly choked and smiled bitterly. Definitely not. Life and work are indeed better separated. I think about it too simply. Then let's do it. Is there anything else? Stumbling to speak. That's something, let's say it. Boss, everybody's been busy since Facebook went live, and now there are more and more users, and there's more pressure on moderation, as well as maintenance and technology development. 50 people is a bit short, and when I'm really busy, I have to go to Howard and Mirren to borrow people, but I'm embarrassed to keep talking. Can I recruit another batch of new employees? How many do you want to hire? Eric asked rhetorically. I calculated that if everything is going well, 70 people will probably be enough to last until the end of this year. Okay, then let's recruit it. You are specifically responsible, and I will take a look when the time comes. Hanging up, Eric thought that it was indeed time to add staff to Facebook, mainly because he didn't expect it to grow so quickly. In addition, if you have to fight with MySpace, the logistics are not stable. In fact, since meeting James Murdoch at Nico's birthday party on June 20th, Eric has been waiting for the other party to make a move. It's been nearly a month now, and it's finally here. It seems that this kid has convinced old Murdoch, but I don't know how far old Murdoch will support him. A traditional newspaper giant, a stubborn old man, especially the elder Murdoch, who has also experienced the internet fiasco, is not so easy to rekindle enthusiasm. That was during the dot-com bubble a few years ago, and Yahoo generated twice the market value of News Corporation with less than 3% of News Corp's revenue, a phenomenon that spurred Murdoch Sr. on. So he went on an internet investment spree, spending more than $1 billion to acquire sites such as WebMD, Juno, The Street, and 6 Degrees. Of course, it turned out to be no surprise. Not long after I bought it, the internet bubble burst. Almost all of the old Murdoch's investments have been wasted. That is more than $1 billion, not a dozen yuan, and he vomited blood. Since then, the elder Murdoch has never said anything good about the internet, and he has directly disbanded the internet department of News Corporation, and he has completely stopped playing. So this time, even if it is the request of the younger son, Eric estimates that the elder Murdoch may not be willing to invest much capital. It is likely to be the same as Dad giving himself $10 million to fight. For example, it is also giving James half a year to toss. If you become a genius, you are a genius, and if you don't succeed, go back and listen to Lao Tzu's arrangement to work. And Eric believes that the elder Murdoch will definitely set a goal for his son, and the goal must be based on Facebook. With 20 million Facebook users, he wouldn't ask for less than 15 million. And after having a user base, with the greedy character of old Murdoch, he will definitely ask for profits. Non-realizable assets are equal to negative equity. But social networks, in terms of the current economic environment, there is only one point to make money, and that is advertising. Users hate ads the most. And once too many ads are inserted when the user base is still unstable, this practice is no different from driving users out in disguise. Before engaging in Facebook, Eric had already set a policy that he would not accept ads within a year, and even if he didn't make any money, he would first stabilize users by burning money. When the user's stickiness comes up and Facebook's function is perfected, you can't be reluctant to leave. The cost of silence is too great, and then it's time to cut leaks. Just as Eric was setting the next step in Facebook's development, MySpace began to roll out on a large scale. Also backed by strong funding, MySpace's promotion strategy is similar to Facebook's. The first is the TV commercial, and as a daddy, Fox is at full throttle. News networks, television networks, and radio networks insert circular advertisements at various time slots. Join MySpace. Join MySpace. Join MySpace. As long as it was Fox's audience, they were all brainwashed and bombarded by this advertisement. Then there is the promotion of the internet. Yahoo, Google, MSN, and major forums have begun to scrub the floor marketing. Then there is offline promotion. MySpace did not choose major universities, perhaps because it felt that it had been occupied by Facebook. It chose the plan that Eric had abandoned and worked with major companies and groups to promote it. At the same time, it also hired a large number of people to haunt bars and nightclubs in major cities, and chose to attract DJs, musicians, and spiritual girls to join. This group of people plays openly, and it comes with a certain number of fans, and more importantly, music is currently Facebook's weakness. Most of the stars gathered on Facebook are film and television actors, and music is also available, but the proportion is small. And MySpace, of course, has not let go of the film and television industry. MGM can mobilize its own connections, and Fox is only strong but not weak. So, in just 2 days over the weekend, a large number of Hollywood actors open MySpace accounts. Many of them are duplicated by Facebook. After all, there are so many big-name actors that the audience is familiar with. The actors are also very helpless. They are all acquaintances of the big guys, and they have to give face on both sides, and they dare not offend either side. Like the more active Orlando Bloom, Brad Pitt, Keanu Reeves, and Hathaway, etc., Eric certainly can't blame others for this kind of thing. Nico also called him to ask what to do, and Eric also asked her to open it, and it meant a word, and she and James Murdoch were also nodding friends. However, although the stars will give face on both sides, who can keep people in the future depends on their respective abilities. At the same time, after half a month, Facebook users received a tweet from the system again, and the official event will be held. Top your favorite celebrities. Facebook will kick off a 10-day ranking campaign to determine who is the most popular. The rules are simple, based on the number of followers, and the final number one celebrity fan nickname can get a golden logo. The 2nd to 5th places are the silver logo, and the 6th to 10th places are the bronze logo. Of course, Facebook has also bought advertising space, and the internet is also overwhelmingly promoted, which is fighting against MySpace's advertising. It's Monday. After breakfast, Eric drives to the set, and today is the day House of Cards starts. Eric had just parked his car when a white Land Rover suddenly entered the parking space next to him. He was already familiar with this car, and it was naturally the big beauty Theron. Getting out of the car and walking to the Land Rover, Eric stretched out his hand through the car door and saw 2 tight legs wearing flat sandals. Theron smiled sweetly and helped Eric to his men. Bang! The car door closed, and Theron gave him a blank look. "Don't let go, I'm not disabled." "Don't let it go," Eric said and squeezed it hard, and Theron's face suddenly became tangled. "Don't do that, Eric. You know I have a boyfriend, it's not good." Eric didn't listen to what she was saying, leaned over and whispered in Theron's ear, "Miss, you're embarrassed." Theron's breathing was suddenly heavy, and he pulled his hand out with all his might, glared at Eric and hurried away. When she came to the studio, she calmed her beating heart and sighed again for some reason. Patty Jenkins looked over curiously. "What's wrong, Theron? Why are you sighing?" "There's no director. Filming is almost over." "Well, there are only a few scenes left. Let's try to finish it in 2 days. Let's go and put on makeup." Theron groaned and walked to the dressing room, sighing again. "The filming of The Female Devil is coming to an end. I'm afraid we don't have a suitable reason to meet again. The script of Inception hasn't been released yet, so we can't use this as a reason." She muttered in her heart, feeling a little lost. This bastard, what a nasty guy. He bullies me and seduces me every time. It's really bad. Why is he so handsome and so good? Charlize Theron, be sober, you're a boyfriend. Eric Cooper is a big carrot, and Nicole Kidman, Gal Gadot, the Olsen sisters have all had scandals, and you are not suitable. Yes, we're not suitable. I can't betray Stuart. He's nice to me, and although sometimes he likes to lose his temper and we argue, I can't be that betrayer. The makeup artist applied Theron's makeup, and Theron looked blankly ahead. In my mind, the figures of Eric and Stuart are constantly intertwined. Maybe she herself doesn't know when she started, and her body and mind have fallen into it. On the set of House of Cards, dozens of staff members were busy inspecting machines, debugging equipment, and building sets. Andrea and Neil Blomkamp went back and forth, and the two of them, especially the latter, had already played 2 plays with Eric. I am already familiar with the shooting style of my big boss, and I know very well what to do in each part. Eric looked at today's shooting plan, which was all indoor scenes, scattered in every episode. Is still the same sentence. The filming of film and television dramas is completely to see which scenes are suitable for filming together, and then open another one after focusing on solving one scene, so as to save shooting time to the greatest extent. Saving time is equivalent to saving money, and it has nothing to do with the order of episodes. Eric, how do I look? He was looking down at the script when a woman's voice rang in his ears, and he knew it was Ball Leffley without looking up. After looking at the other party, Eric nodded. Yes, this look will make you look like a rookie in the workplace who has just come out of college. No, the eyebrows are too light. Go and ask the makeup artist to strengthen it. Have you studied the character of Zoe? Leffley nodded and replied confidently, Of course, I have been analyzing it very seriously since I got the script. Although Zoe is a rookie, she is very ambitious, and she wants to do a big career. This is a restless woman who wants to fly high and high, so she fell into the trap of Frank, an old politician, and became a tool for the other party to use. And she prides herself on being smart, thinking she can play Frank, thinking that it is a mutual use of each other, but in fact she doesn't realize that she is a pawn. The last time I was at home, I thought what you said was funny. Zoe is a person who is in the middle of the game and doesn't know it, a political idiot who mistakes a chess piece for a chess player. Hearing this, Eric couldn't help but look at Leffley with admiration. It seems that the other party has really seriously pondered the role, which is a good thing. If she can maintain this attitude and work hard, with her appearance and figure, Ashley and Mary don't want to make mean girls. Eric doesn't mind giving her an important role, and the heroine can too. And then gradually moved from the small screen to the big screen, so that she could leave the country in MGM's big productions, and finally slowly cultivate into a first-class female star. This is also Eric's vision route for Louis Fay. Bolivari is still white, and he has already won too much in terms of skin color. Eric smiled. It's good to read the script carefully, keep it that way. Do you understand what I mean by letting you paint your eyebrows? Is it because I'm not pretty enough, or isn't it sexy enough? Asked Balafali, trying. At this time, Robin White came over. As the heroine of Forrest Gump, she has been in the industry for 20 years and has been nominated for major awards many times. She has rich experience. Directly pointed out the problem. It's not sexy, it's personality, a more three-dimensional knife eyebrow shape, which is in line with Zoe's ambitious dedication. Am I right? Eric gave Robin White a thumbs up, either saying that good works like to use experienced actors, whose experience can greatly reduce the need to repeatedly search for details, which can save a lot of time. Hello, Palafali. Leffley offered to reach out. The two women shook hands. I know you, Maggie from The Walking Dead. I watched the show. And me. The Walking Dead is one of the best TV shows I've watched in recent times. Not far away, the actor Kevin Spacey appeared in a suit, with a straight figure and slightly squinted eyes with an aura. Balafali suddenly laughed. She can be regarded as a person with her own masterpiece, you see. Even the Oscar winner knows me. Eric stood up from behind the monitor and shook Kevin Spacey's hand. Since the confirmation of the appearance, the two have only spoken on the phone once, and today is the first official meeting. Hello, Kevin. Welcome to House of Cards. Kevin Spacey smiled slightly. My honor. When I only read a few pages of the script, I knew what a good book I had come across. Frank is a complex character, and there's a lot of drama about it, and I told my agent right then that I had to play it. I can say with absolute certainty that this is the best script I've come across since American Beauty. For this reason, I also found the original book of House of Cards to read. Eric, I have to say, your screenwriting ability really shocked me. Was made a fool by the actor, and Eric couldn't help laughing comfortably in his heart, looking at the level of others. I didn't earn a penny of money, and I didn't leak anything, and I had enough face. You ask, why don't you reduce the salary if you want to act so much? Nonsense. How much pay is the agent's problem? Not my problem. I want the role and the agent wants the salary are two concepts. After chatting for a while, they gradually got acquainted, and Neil Blomkamp came over and said, Director, it's ready. It's time to start filming. Hearing this, Kevin Spacey and Robin White left the entrance. Eric looked at the time and announced loudly, House of Cards Game 22 action. The main content of this scene is that Frank was overshadowed by the president, did not get the position of Secretary of State, disappeared in anger for a day and then went home in despair, and then communicated with his wife Claire. Due to her husband's failure, tens of millions of dollars in political donations were withdrawn, and even the water purification project with his wife Claire was put on hold. The gaffer adjusts the light source, and under the camera, Kevin Spacey pushes the door back to the house. He was carrying a briefcase, and when he entered the door, his straight body suddenly relaxed, as if he had suddenly aged a few years. On the outside, he is a party whip, and he must learn to control his emotions, and even if he is cheated off as a Secretary of State, he must maintain his demeanor. But when he returned home, it was different. There was only his wife Claire at home, and he could show his true temperament, so tiredness and unwillingness suddenly showed on his face. Behind the surveillance screen, Eric said softly, beautiful expression control. Spacey accurately grasped the dramatic point. Assistant Director Andrea nodded in agreement. Kevin Spacey showed a cautious posture, apparently not wanting to alarm his wife, but turned around to see Claire sitting on the couch waiting for him. In the shot, Robin White was seen holding his hands on his chest, two slender white legs crossed, and his eyes contained scrutiny and coldness. Then came a sharp tone of accountability. Francis, you didn't call. For 9 hours, you didn't make a single call. Do you know we're going through a big event, and you don't tell me the result? When did we run away from each other? In the face of his wife's questioning, Kevin Spacey's soft tone revealed a hint of cowardice. Sorry, I just wanted to find a solution first. Did you think of it? Nope. Robin White's body leaned forward suddenly. This also affects me. I'm not angry about the money, but we should face it together. If you don't tell me, we'll be finished. Then the two began to communicate, and every line was repeated, without stumbling, and the expressions and movements were all in place. It was as if the audience really saw two politicians communicating, rather than two actors acting. Frank, you should be angry. Yes, I'm going mad. Then why can't I see it? What do you want me to do, Claire? Yelling like a 20-year-old. I'm going to see how you behave, Frank. I'm sorry, then I'm sorry, Claire. No, I don't accept it. What do you want? Robin White got up from the couch and walked upstairs with a graceful gait. I don't accept your apology, because my husband never apologizes, even to me. Then the camera advances, directly to Robin White's face to give a close-up. Her eyes were cold, as if there was no trace of emotion. She didn't want to comfort her depressed husband, and the words she said weren't meant to motivate Frank to cheer up. That's great. Perfect performance. Eric stood up and applauded, and the others applauded. In the nearly 5-minute scene, the two completed it without a single mistake, showing excellent business quality. Eric put this scene in the first scene of filming, just to give a sample to the other actors, weigh a few pounds and tails in his heart, and work hard in private. Next to him, Balafali, who felt deeply, couldn't help but open his eyes wide. At this moment, she suddenly felt a lot of pressure, and the crew of The Walking Dead was a pediatric compared to here. It's not that Rick, Daryl, and Wu Yanzu are not good at acting. They are also excellent actors. But excellent is also divided into levels. 80 points are also called excellent, 99 points are also called excellent, and the difference of more than a dozen points in the middle is the gap between the Oscars and ordinary actors. The thought of having a lot of rivalry with Kevin Spacey made Balafali swallow his saliva and feel worried. Although this scene is not long, it is an important foreshadowing for the relationship between the characters. Frank and Claire are not at all like their average husband and wife. Their relationship is more like that of close business partners, political allies, and comrades in the trenches. This situation is more like the original appearance of the marriage system, where one prospers and the other loses. As for feelings, feelings are attached to collaborative relationships and do not exist alone. If you make an analogy, it is probably the real Clinton and Hillary. After a few praises, he continued shooting. House of Cards Scene 23, Action. Most of the scenes filmed today focused on the husband and wife Frank and Claire, and their performances shocked everyone again and again. Most of the scenes can be passed, and occasionally there are mistakes or inadequacies. Eric pointed out that the two could also be quickly corrected, and the shooting went very smoothly and the progress was surprisingly fast. In just one day, he finished filming 9 pages of script, and if he could continue like this, Eric would be able to finish filming this scene in less than a month. It's a pity that this is just a fantasy. The difference in the level of the actors is too big, and you can't expect others to perform as well as the two of them. Nice day, see Kevin tomorrow and see Robin tomorrow. Waved goodbye to a few people, the crew began to call it a day, and the staff got off work one after another. Eric discussed the content of tomorrow's shoot with Andrea and Neil, and left himself. Walking out of the studio, the rest of the crew was also calling it a day, and Eric came to the crew of The Witch, by the way. As for what he was thinking, he could only understand what he couldn't say. Eric, what are you looking at? Spotting Eric, who was probing his brain, Patty Jenkins suddenly appeared out of nowhere and asked, "It's nothing, come and ask about the progress. How is the filming of The Female Devil?" "It's going well. I listened to your suggestion and changed part of the plot, and now it's really dark to the end, adding a lot of perverted content, and I can only rely on you to pass the trial." "Don't worry. I said that if you can get on, you can get on. It's a big deal that some conservative countries don't log in. How long do you need to shoot?" "It's going to be done tomorrow." "Filming so soon," said Eric, a little surprised. Piety shrugged. "I did solid preparations, of course it was fast. There was still a little budget left. You should thank me." "Hee, you have someone's Zarin style, and if you keep it, you will definitely become a popular director in major companies. So, let's thank you for helping me save my budget. I invite a few of you to dinner." "Ask me or Theron?" Piety asked teasingly. "Theron, of course, you are by the way." Patty Jenkins choked up. "You're making no secret of it, but she's gone." "Gone? Forget it, I'm gone too." Piety hurriedly grabbed Eric. "I've said a lot of good things for you during this time, and I heard that Theron and her boyfriend had a fight, and they were in a cold war. Why are you fighting? Did you do it? Did you hit someone?" "It's not about beating people, it's just a matter of life, and now Stuart Townsend lives in Theron's house. Some media outlets say he's a little man snuggling up to Theron, and out of the dignity of a man, Townsend wants to buy another house. But with his income, Beverly Hills doesn't think about it, so he wants to buy one in Owen. But Theron felt that his idea was too naive and meaningless. Not to mention that Irving was dozens of kilometers away from Los Angeles, and it was inconvenient to work. Theron didn't want to go to Live in Owen, but Townsend insisted on buying it, and an argument broke out. Women think that men don't know what to do, and men feel that women don't respect him. Anyway, I heard Theron say that it was quite noisy. After Patty finished speaking, Eric laughed. Before he could help, the other party had a problem first, which was a godsend. The news has already told you, whether you can seize the opportunity or not, it's up to you. Thanks to Patty, Eric walked out of the studio. As soon as I started the car, I found Balafali knocking on the glass. Rolling down the window, Eric looked at the other man. What's wrong? Leffley smiled brightly. Eric, do you have time? How about having dinner together? Is there anything wrong with you? Well, I watched Kevin Spacey's performance today, and I felt a lot of pressure, so I wanted to ask you to guide me alone. As she spoke, she licked the corners of her mouth, and the meaning of sexual provocation was obvious. Eric decisively refused. Sorry, I have something to do. Saying that, he kicked the accelerator and left. Lao Tzu is going to attack Theron. What kind of thing are you? Looking at the speeding butt of the car and the black smoke sprayed on his skirt, Balafali only felt that his lungs were about to explode. Finally waited for Godot to leave, and he also joined a group with Eric. Thinking that the opportunity was finally coming, she forced herself to forget the humiliation she had been before and plucked up the courage to come up and tempt, but she didn't expect the other party to even look at it. Bastard! Stupid! Turtle King bastard! The parking lot resounded with unwilling scolding. Hey Theron, is it convenient now? In the Wrangler's driver's seat, Eric dialed the phone as he drove away. Eric, what's wrong? How about having dinner together? Well, sorry Eric, I'm a little tired. I don't want to go out tonight. I'll treat you to dinner another day. Your tone sounds a little low. Is something wrong? Eric asked knowingly. Theron hesitated for a moment before saying, It's nothing. It's just a little tiring from filming. I'm going to hang up the phone if there's nothing to do. I need to rest for a while. Wait. After a day of filming, it's not good for your body to sleep without dinner. If you don't want to come out, I'll buy some food for you to over. Hearing that Eric was coming, Theron hurriedly refused. No, it's too troublesome. In fact, I'm not hungry at all. Is your boyfriend at home? Said Eric, who simply hit a straight ball. He's not there. Is it here or is it not? Yes. Really? Theron was silent for a moment before speaking. No, he's not at home. Okay, half an hour at most. Wait for me. No, Eric, you must not. That's it. Hanging up the phone, a smile appeared on the corner of Eric's mouth, and from the tone of the other party's voice, he could feel tangled. And the entanglement just shows that she has herself in her heart, and she is enough to shake the status of her boyfriend in her heart. A few minutes later, seeing that the call never came back, Eric was even more sure of his thoughts. If Theron really didn't want to let him pass, he would definitely call again to dissuade him, or even say some harsh things, but she didn't. She was in a state like a person walking on the edge of a cliff, and she could excuse herself to fall down with even a little exertion. Wrangler slammed the gas pedal and ran straight to Leonard's restaurant, where the two had already dined many times, and Eric knew what she liked to eat. Meanwhile, Beverly Hills, Charlize Theron's villa. The woman leaned against the wall and slowly slid down, finally sitting helplessly on the ground, her phone slipping from her palm. A string of numbers had been displayed on the electronic screen, but her fingers had not landed on the dial buttons after all. Sighing, Theron couldn't help but ask himself, what was wrong with him? What the hell was he doing, and allowing a man to come to his house? It's scary not because the man is strange, it's because it's familiar. The two have been together for more than a month, and she is not a fool, so she can naturally feel Eric's friendship for her. Could it be that I have subconsciously accepted Eric's feelings? Otherwise, why would I acquiesce to his coming? No, it's not. Eric is an investor, a producer, a player with power, and I'm just a card at the table. How can the cards refuse the player? I just succumb to his power. As for feelings, we are friends, and we can only be friends, and today is just a dinner between friends, and it doesn't mean anything. I can't betray Stuart, and by the way, Stuart, I have to tell him that if he had been there, Eric would have been out of the way. Thinking of this, Theron picked up his phone and looked up his boyfriend's number, then stopped his finger on the dial button again. Looking at the mobile phone screen in front of her, she felt that her fingers weighed 1,000 pounds and she couldn't press it. In my mind, heaven and man were fighting, and I don't know how long it was. I suddenly heard the doorbell ringing and I woke up. Looking up at the time, Theron exclaimed, "Oh no, why has it been so long? It must be Eric who is here." As if pushed by an invisible force again, she decisively threw away her mobile phone, and the idea of notifying her boyfriend was thrown to the horizon. When I opened the door, it was a little man who had disturbed himself. Eric held up the paper bag in his hand. "Look at the sign on it. It's all your favorite dishes." Theron reluctantly said, "I said you didn't need to come, Eric. But I'm already here. Won't you invite me in?" Theron took the bag. "Well, for the sake of the food, at least you do remember what I like to eat."
Bang!
Eric walked into the house. It was the first time he had come to Theron's house, and his goal was instantly clearer. That is, to make this place his home in the future. Pouring the food on the plate, Theron asked, "What do you need to drink?" "Wine, of course. It's the perfect drink for this moment." "Why?" "The chef recommended that this foie gras must be served with red wine to taste, and it seems that your mood needs a little alcohol to anesthetize it." Theron's hand trembled. "What does this have to do with my mood?" "Because it hears the sorrow of your heart." Eric pointed to his ear. The two looked at each other for a few seconds, and under Eric's powerful eye attack, Theron was defeated and hurriedly turned around and walked to the side of the wine cabinet. Holland Winery, is it okay?" Or Deer Leap Winery. Deer Leap Winery, Cabernet Sauvignon is the king of grapes. The king of grapes, just worthy of you. The king of Hollywood, do you mean that? Eric shook his head slightly. King of Hollywood, hee, I don't like this title. Harvey Weinstein can be called the Emperor of Hollywood. He completely tarnished this name. I've heard that Harvey Weinstein isn't a good guy, and there are rumors circulating in circles that he likes to behave badly with actresses. It's not a rumor. I can tell you exactly that it's true. There are at least dozens of actresses who have been sexually assaulted or threatened to be sexually assaulted by him. Hearing this, Theron was a little surprised at first, and then nodded clearly. The circle is such a fuck thing. What can be done? The 11:21 comes over with food, and the two sit on the floor. Theron suddenly asked, "Eric, you're not going to be like Weinstein, are you?" "Do you think I need it?" asked Eric, pointing to his handsome face. The two of them burst out laughing. Theron thought that he had been alone with each other so many times, and Eric had ample chances, and he really wanted to be it a long time ago, but he didn't. Well, lately he seems to be getting more and more bold, and he is no longer satisfied with verbal teasing, and has begun to move his hands and feet. But it's not annoying at all, and it seems to break through its own defenses like moisturizing things silently. It takes half an hour to sober up, and we can eat something first. Or watch a movie. I took a DVD. Unbearable, by Jennifer Lopez. I like her. Theron took the tape and looked at it. What type of movie is this? Thriller, crime, suspense. I haven't seen it. The boss stuffed it to me. In fact, of course, Eric knows that the content of the movie involves domestic violence. The husband abuses his wife, and then the wife awakens, beats and kills the other party for revenge, which is a revenge movie. For Theron, this kind of movie is much better than a horror movie. Turning on the DVD player, the Sony Columbia logo floated by, and the two watched while eating. The movie is from last year, and the picture quality is clear. As the plot of the movie progresses, The two have already put down the dishes, and Theron frowns and looks at the TV screen with an uncomfortable expression.
Bang!
OMG. As the scum husband breaks his wife's ribs with a punch, even though he knows it's a movie, the memories of the past are attacking him. Theron couldn't take it anymore and turned his head to close his eyes. Seeing this, Eric approached and opened his arms to hold her in his arms. At the moment of physical contact between the two, he clearly felt Theron's body tremble, but he did not resist. The two hugged each other quietly, and each other could hear each other's heartbeats. Eric didn't go any further, and after a while, he spoke. "Don't be afraid. She's going to kill that scumbag." Theron opened his eyes, moved slightly, and found that it didn't work, so he stopped struggling and leaned against Eric's chest, his attention returning to the movie. In the end, when the scumbag husband was killed by his wife's old punch, and the wife was still recognized as legitimate defense, Theron finally smiled. Eric took the opportunity to peck her face, and Theron shuddered again. Then, as if something moved, the four lips suddenly joined together, and a pair of arms wrapped around Eric's neck, and the two kissed passionately. The damp breath permeated, and Eric tried to savor the taste of Theron, and the heavy breaths of the two intertwined. A kiss lasted for a few minutes, as if to vent all the lovesickness and desire for this time. Suddenly, Eric felt a force in his chest, and he was pushed to the ground, and Theron hurriedly stood up and took a few steps back. She waved her hand repeatedly. "Eric, it's not right for us to do this. I have a boyfriend, you know. And Stuart didn't betray me. Please don't push me anymore. I'm afraid I really won't be able to betray him. I don't want to be that bad guy." Eric smiled and motioned to Theron to be quiet. "Okay, I respect your decision. I won't force you. Don't worry, okay?" Theron gasped and looked at Eric. "Really? Really? I promise it won't happen again, okay?" Theron nodded. "Okay, I'm going to hot food. You wait." Seeing that she didn't dare to look at herself at all, and found a lame reason to run away, Eric couldn't help but laugh secretly. However, it seems that he needs to work harder, and he knows that Theron is a more dedicated woman. With her beauty and status, it is normal for her suitors to cross the Atlantic from Los Angeles to London. But there are actually very few scandals about her, especially during the relationship, and there have been no scandals about splitting her legs. Is it because the gossip tabloids don't work hard? Of course not. The entertainment media business in the United States is the best in the world. The main reason is that I can't really find it, and Theron is such a woman. And if you really want to get such a woman, you have to put more thought into it. Afterwards, the two drank the red wine that had already woken up, ate the leftover food, and discussed the plot of the movie. After the kiss she had just experienced, Eric could feel Theron's heart open even more, and she began to talk about the most painful memories. Dad abused Mom and herself, and Mom chose to shoot Dad in order to protect herself. The two had been alone many times, and this was the first time Theron had talked about it. The conversation box opened, and the two drank cup after cup, but Eric couldn't persuade her, so he could only drink with her. Then he held her in his arms again, smelling the wine in her breath, and watching her gradually heavy eyelids until the whole person was completely soft in his arms. Alas, sometimes it is difficult to be a righteous gentleman, especially in the face of a beauty like you, but your beauty is raising my morality when it lowers my reason. How can I do anything to you that is in danger? Get a good night's sleep. Eric muttered to himself and picked up Theron, walked to the second-floor bedroom to help her take off her shoes, and then put her on the bed and covered her with a cool quilt. Looking at this beautiful face, he couldn't help but lower his head, kissed Theron lightly on the forehead, and then closed the door and left. A moment later, listening to a noise in the kitchen downstairs, Theron slowly opened his eyes. After a while, I saw Eric's departing back through the curtains, and the corners of her mouth rose slightly. touched the part of his forehead that was kissed, and then his boyfriend's roaring and quarreling in the past few days came to mind. Theron shook his head, covering his head with the covers. 7 days have passed in a flash, during which Eric is serious about filming, and he did not harass Theron anymore in the days when The Female Devil was completed, but just kept in touch with phone and text messages every day. During this period, he also completed the script outline of Inception, which was written for more than a month, while looking for a script doctor to supplement the enrichment, and at the same time arranged for the production to connect with the main actors, such as Christian Bale, Heath Ledger, and Tom Hardy. As for Nico, she naturally scented herself and walked through the back door, through the sewers, playing with little bells, singing an opera and dancing. And La Vie en Rose finally started filming after several months of script refinement, and the most important director finally fell on Ron Howard. For this big bull, Eric admires and appreciates it very much. He is known as the best biopic director in Hollywood, and he has directed countless good works. Just won the Oscar for Best Director with A Beautiful Mind the year before last. In short, I am absolutely relieved to hand it over to him. The script of Evil Force was not involved in itself, but only came up with ideas. The form of the unit drama is actually relatively easy, and I directly hired 9 screenwriters to work, and I also handed in the first draft for myself in a short time. Eric reviewed it and proposed some revisions, and it is estimated that it will be up and running by the end of August. The first season of American Horror Story still chose the murder house as the prototype of the script, and Eric came up with an idea and arranged for the screenwriter. Indiscriminately today is a big day for the city of Santa Barbara, and the media from all over the world have focused their cameras here. At this time, the Santa Barbara City Courthouse was already crowded with people, conservatively estimated to be in the thousands, and the number continued to increase. Journalists only account for a very small part of them, and the majority are still fans of Miku. They came here from all over the country despite the hot weather, carrying signs and slogans. Especially the recent Tom Schneider raid on Neverland has made too much trouble, and My Buckle has won the sympathy of countless people. So in addition to his true fans, there are many righteous and caring people who have joined in. Fearing that it could get out of control, the Santa Barbara Police Department dispatched hundreds of police officers to maintain order, deploying police from nearly every district in the city, with helicopters hovering in the sky. But even if so many police officers are dispatched, it is still not enough for the vast number of people. Oh my God, there are so many people. Little Elizabeth was amazed to see such a big scene. Eric sighed. In addition to Elizabeth, Godot also flew from home by plane. At the beginning, the 3 of them had to attend the trial to cheer for My Buckle. The number of fans in Miku is really terrifying, and if the outcome of the trial is not in his favor, I am afraid that there will be fanatical fans who will storm the court. Godot also said in surprise. Eric nodded. The battle was indeed very large, and he couldn't help but think of the scene of the followers of the treasure storming the White House. If you raise your arms, I'm afraid there will really be fanatical fans who will do it. Of course, with Micah's kind character, this can't happen. He will only persuade fans to be rational. Let's go. There are more and more people. Let's go in first. Inside the courtroom, Eric sat in the back seat of the defendant's dock with 2 girls, one older and one younger, and found a seat in the front row. There are still more than 10 minutes before the start of the trial, and Miku has not yet arrived. In the plaintiff's seat opposite, Janet Avizo and Gavin Avizo were whispering, and next to them was Larry Feldman, a lawyer in the 1993 case. On the other side, there is the jury of 12 people, which has now arrived. They are all residents of the city of Santa Barbara, come from all walks of life, and are randomly selected. One person was wearing a suit and uniform and looked like a white-collar worker. There are also people dressed in casual clothes who look like housewives. This is the difference between the United States and China, the jury system. Of course, these members who are selected for the jury are subject to certain tests to ensure that they have a certain level of literacy and common sense, and can distinguish between right and wrong. In Huaxia, when a case is heard, the final verdict is made by the judge, who decides whether he is guilty, what is the crime, and how many years he should be sentenced. In the United States, the judge and the jury are divided. The jury is responsible for determining whether the defendant is guilty or not, and the judge is responsible for sentencing. In a typical criminal case, if a jury of 12 is unable to reach a consensus, a vote may be taken. A minimum of 9 people are found guilty of the crime. In the case of a homicide, it is necessary for 12 people to be completely unanimous and not to agree with any person. If there is no agreement after several rounds of discussion, a new jury will be selected for a new trial. The process may last several years, with several juries in between, until a unanimous verdict of 12 is reached. There is a very classic movie, 12 Angry Men, that describes the jury system, and Huaxia remade 12 Citizens is not bad. So for Maiku's case, as long as there are at least 4 people who believe that he is not guilty, then the victory can be declared. A few more minutes later, there was a sudden loud cheer outside, and many people couldn't help but look back. Soon, in the passage, my buckle and lawyer Tom Mercerios walked briskly to the dock. He was wearing a handsome new dress today, and his face was calm without the slightest concern. "My button!" little Elizabeth shouted, waving her hand. Hearing the voice, my button looked over. Eric and Godot waved at him, and my immediately smiled. Silence. At this moment, the judge walked out. The clock fell to 9 o'clock, and the trial officially began. The first is that both sides take their respective oaths to express respect for the law, to show responsibility for their own statements, and to say that everything they say is true. Then enter the case presentation stage. Such a big thing is known to the whole United States, but the procedure still has to go. After the end of the presentation, the most important stage of the court debate is the stage where the lawyers of both sides ask each other's questions, look for loopholes in the other party, and invite witnesses and exhibits to appear in court. This is also the most critical part of influencing the jury's decision. Your Excellency, I'm done. Gavin Avizo finished his speech, and the judge looked at lawyer Maserio and signaled that he was ready to be questioned. Maserio nodded, then walked out of the dock and went straight to Gavin Avizo, staring at him sharply. Gavin Avizo, you just said that Jackson molested you in the bedroom, but this statement contradicts your previous statement. In February of this year, after Martin Basher's documentary on Jackson's slander aired, Fox TV interviewed the family, and you and your mother both said that Jackson never did anything wrong with you. How do you explain that? Well, I was forced. Forced by whom? Is she or he? What? Protest, Mr. Judge. Gavin is only a 13-year-old child, and he is easily misled, and I suggest that Janet answer this question, and that it is a matter of their mutual involvement. Larry Feldman, the opposing lawyer, said. The judge nodded, and Janet hurriedly spoke. It was Jackson who forced us to say this, and if we don't help him clarify, he will have people beat us, and he also threatens to keep us in Neverland all the time, and we will not be able to get out of this life. But you are not restrained, you are interviewed, you are free to come and go in society, there is no coercion. That's because there is a media, everyone is paying attention to this, so he doesn't dare. So why didn't you say it in an interview, but only today? Because I forgot, and Jackson threatened us in private. No one else knew, and it might not be useful to say it. Janet stammered in reply. Mercerios suddenly shouted. Then Gavin Avizo said that there is no third person in the bedroom molestment. There is no third person, only his dictation. Why? Do you have to say it? Or is it that your goal was Jackson's money, that you deliberately used the charge of child molestation, and that Larry Feldman's attorney was the plaintiff in the 1993 case? Godot squeezed Eric's hand vigorously. The lawyer my co is looking for looks amazing. Oh, look, the big one is in the back. Eric whispered. Protest. The opposing lawyer is suspected of seductive misleading, and my client just forgot about it, which does not mean that it did not happen. Mercerios looked ahead. Mr. Judge, I am not saying this to mislead, but only to show that Lady Janet Avizo is a woman full of lies, and there is a huge problem with her character. She was a professional litigator, and she had a criminal record on her back, even though Jackson paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for their medical bills. But instead of being grateful, she had her eyes on my client's property. No, it's slander. You bastard slandering me. Janet Avizo roared angrily. Larry Feldman couldn't help frowning and hurriedly pulled her sleeve, knowing that you didn't go to middle school and your quality is not high. But that's not a reason to swear, especially in front of a judge and a jury, and it lowers the impression score. This is certainly not slander. I have witnesses. With the judge's permission, Eric sent some of the people he found who had been blackmailed by Janet Avizo to appear in court one by one. Janet Avizo sued for sexual abuse, and I paid her $15,000, but she couldn't tell the exact cause of the injuries on her body. It was just an unintentional touch, and I swore I had no intention of sexually harassing me, but this woman kept harassing me, and my family and work were affected, so I had no choice but to give her $10,000. Yes, this bad woman I remember. She peed in front of my store. I wanted to stop her, but she wanted to report a warning to me about sexual harassment. I didn't want to make a big deal out of it, so I had to let her go. 8 witnesses took turns to make accusations against Janet Avizo, all of whom had noses and eyes, portraying her as a villain who would do anything for money. Janet Avizo's face became extremely ugly, and she kept biting her fingers, but she couldn't refute it. Because several of them have criminal records, this thing can't be faked. When the judge and jury see the files, even if a few people didn't report to the police in the first place, even if only half of them have a record, the jury naturally tends to believe that all the events are true. As for Janet's lawyer, Larry Feldman, how did he know that there were so many things behind the scenes? And he didn't know where to start if he wanted to interject. Mercerio continued. In addition, we have also investigated that Janet Avizo is currently engaged in charity fraud. Gavin Avizo's illness has obviously been cured with Jackson's help, but she still claims that there is no cure and has opened a donation account. Her card number is XXXXXX, and she has repeatedly spoken out on live television and on the internet, asking for donations from the public. No, my illness has not been cured. Gavin Avizo hurried to explain. Mercerios immediately threw out the medical record. Then how do you explain this medical record? Gavin Avizo immediately bowed his head and was silent. The disease is also objective. You said that it was okay to check it if it was not cured. After a series of evidence, not only the onlookers shook their heads again and again, but the jury looked at them solemnly. Seeing the collapse of Janet's good mother's personality, Larry Feldman hurriedly said, Mr. Judge, regardless of whether the other party's human and physical evidence is true or false, Janet's character has nothing to do with whether Michael Jackson has violated Gavin. These are two different things. The judge nodded. That's right. The worst criminals also enjoy human rights, and we can't judge a person because of his inferior character that he is always wrong. Regardless of whether Janet Avizo's crime is true or not, there will naturally be public prosecutions and civil prosecutions waiting for her, but they are not within the scope of this court's discussion. Continue. Subsequently, both sides continued to invite their respective witnesses to appear in court, and Gavin Avizo's side were all relatives of his family. Although they always said that Gavin had been violated, they still could not produce even the slightest physical evidence, and only blindly incited emotions to pity. On the other hand, my coup invited the bodyguards and servants of Neverland, Gavin Avizo's friends and teachers, etc. Gavin wasn't a good boy, he didn't do his homework, and he liked to argue with his classmates. I asked Gavin why he didn't try to get out of Neverland, and he said he liked it. It was as fun as Disneyland. Gavin always told me that he was going to get rich, that he was going to be a multimillionaire, that Michael Jackson was going to pay him a lot of money. I've always been responsible for the safety of the Avizo family at Neverland. Michael has never been alone with this kid, and he's never slept in the same bed with the other person. Only once he slept on the floor, and I swear I'm telling the truth. Even Home Alone child star Macaulay Culkin appeared in court. I went to Neverland many times when I was a kid, but he never did anything to me. He always played with me when my parents were there. After some debate, Gavin Avizo also won some sympathy, but more of a character was seen clearly. In particular, the evaluation of him by classmates, friends, and teachers made him a typical bad boy. Seeing that the situation is becoming more and more unfavorable for his side, Larry Feldman can only resort to a killer move, asking for the psychiatrist to be summoned. Mathis presented the psychiatric report to the judge and jury, which showed depression. He said in a sad tone, "This incident has a great impact on Gavin's mental state. You must know that in his heart, Michael Jackson has always been regarded as a father. But this man whom he regarded as his father turned out to be a devil and did the most obscene and disgusting thing to him. Gavin has been sexually assaulted many times. Maybe he's been wrong times. Maybe he's been unfriendly and unsociable, and that's because of the trauma. So please don't look at him in a strange light. He's just a 12-year-old child. What bad heart can a child at such a young age have? Even if there is, it is the sequelae of mental trauma. It is not from his original intention. He is kind. Now it's also replaced by depression. I've seen him cry silently many times. Michael Jackson, this devil. You have to be responsible for it." Santa Barbara City Courthouse. Although it was close to 12 o'clock in the afternoon, there were still people coming one after another. Perhaps it was because of the sincerity that the originally hot weather suddenly turned cloudy, and the wind also rose, bringing a hint of coolness. Hot dogs, cold drinks. "Let's have an ice cream, sir, or a baked apple pie as well. Your clothes are a little damp. Why don't you try this?" Many residents of Santa Barbara came out to do business with food trucks, and many vendors sold clothes, hats, signs, etc., with the words, "Jackson is not guilty" written on them. The sales were very good, and a trial made some people a little rich. Everyone was staring at the courthouse, waiting for the door to open, but luckily there had been no conflict so far, and Micah's fans were still very well behaved. The police are still facing the enemy, and they only hope that this trial will end soon. At this time, inside the courtroom, lawyer Miserio took out a tape. "Mr. Judge, we are skeptical of the psychiatric report provided by Dr. Mathis. Whether it's depression or mental trauma, it's not something that can be easily judged, and even the most authoritative doctors can make mistakes." Mathis sneered. "Lawyer Mercerios, I remind you to pay attention to your remarks. I am a qualified doctor, and my clinic also has a legal certificate issued by the state. You are an experienced lawyer, and you should know that questioning others is about presenting evidence, not just empty words." Mercerios smiled slightly. "Of course, I'm not the Avizo family, and if there is no physical evidence, I will definitely not slander others." As he spoke, he took the tape and walked to the front desk. "Mr. Judge, this tape is our evidence. Please allow it to be played publicly." The judge took the tape and looked at the prosecutor not far away, certainly not Tom Schneider, who had been suspended for investigation. Is a new prosecutor transferred from another city, and he has no intersection with Tom Schneider in life or work. The judge handed the tape to his assistant, and Godot leaned close to Eric's ear and asked softly, "Did you do it?" Feeling the itching sensation in his ears, Eric couldn't help but feel a wave in his heart. Under the good situation, he was in a very good mood, and subconsciously put his hand quietly into Godot's skirt. Of course I did it. Godot's face turned red. Don't do this, what if you're seen? Everyone's attention is on the tape. Who will pay attention to us? But others won't notice, and Almay, who is sitting next to him, keeps an eye on Eric. The little girl noticed that something was wrong at the first time and quietly glanced at it a few times and immediately found the clue. Looking at Godot's face again, the roots of her ears were red. How she didn't understand what the two people next to her were doing. Aome suddenly felt a wave of heat rushing to the heavens, as if she had discovered an incredible secret, and her heart was pounding instantly. Swallowing her saliva, she felt no less nervous than when she found Eric and her two sisters on the second floor that day. Bastard, what a big badass. Don't you even care about the occasion? Aome thought to herself with shame. Wait, did Eric do it on purpose? Is he seducing me? Glancing at Eric, he saw a smile on his lips. Sensing the little girl's movements, Eric also looked down at her. Elizabeth, listen carefully. The wonderful is coming. Aome nodded, thinking that it was already too exciting. As the cassette was placed into the device, the bailiff pressed the play button. Janet, as long as you listen to me, I promise to help you get a large amount of compensation. You know, I helped Evan Chandler get $23 million 10 years ago, and that was in 1993, and this time we're aiming for $50 million. I know these big stars too well. They care about their reputation, and they definitely don't want to make things bigger. I can force Jackson once, I can do it twice. Well, then please, Lawyer Larry, no matter what means are used, I must get this money. Don't worry, I'll train you mother and son, tell you what to say, and we'll need to take Gavin to Dr. Mathis. He's a psychiatrist and he'll give us a psychiatric report, which is an important basis for prosecution and claims. Well, do you need to give him another share of the money? Of course, otherwise why would Mathis help you issue a report? Gavin is very healthy, and what we need is a report to prove that he has a problem. After the recording was played, the audience was silent with the energetic content, and even Godot didn't react, and the itching of your beans couldn't be noticed. After a moment, giving everyone some time to digest, Mercurios spoke. Mr. Judge, we guarantee that the content of this recording is 100% true. You can ask a professional organization to do the identification, and there is absolutely no possibility of artificial synthesis. On the basis of the facts, we have reason to believe that this is a conspiracy, a hunt against Michael Jackson. It was a conspiracy built by the Avisos, Larry Feldman, and Mathis to exploit the public's resentment and hatred of the rich star in order to extort my client's money. This kind of despicable, indecent, shameless, dirty, and filthy behavior not only violates the law, but also challenges the bottom line of public order and morality. After Miserio finished speaking, both the jury and the auditorium erupted into fierce voices. Among them are emotional Maiku fans, and a black guy in his 30s has already stood up and pointed at the opposite side and scolded. As soon as he took the lead, several fans did the same thing, and all kinds of swear words instantly greeted several women of 18 generations, which was much more energetic than what Mercerio said. Silence. The judge pointed to the emotional fans. Expel them. The bailiff also understood the anger of the fans and did not use any means, made a gesture of invitation, and the fans also exited with interest. I love you, my button, shouted a female. Thank you, I love you too. My buckle waved his hand. The commotion stopped, and the judge looked at Janet Aviso. Does the plaintiff have any explanation for this recording? Janet Aviso looked out of breath at lawyer Larry Feldman, who knew nothing more than scolding the streets. The psychiatrist Mathis looked at Feldman nervously, and at this time he was extremely regretful in his heart, and he wanted to slap himself a few big mouths. Why get involved in this matter? Bury your career for a sum of money, and even more terrifyingly, you will face prosecution. Larry Feldman's face is pale, and his mind flashes back to the movies, trying to find out why he was being wiretapped. Seeing that several people were silent, the judge asked again, "Doesn't the plaintiff intend to explain this recording?" Wiping the sweat from his forehead, Larry Feldman stammered and replied, "Mr. Judge, I don't know where this recording came from, and I can't remember if I said anything similar. But even if I did, it was just a private joke, and I was just motivating Janet to have confidence in the lawsuit. Everybody knows Michael Jackson is a star with incredible wealth and connections, and what do my clients have? Naturally, they are worried that they will not win the case at all, so I may say something like this to encourage them, but just because I say it doesn't mean that I have done it. Is everything the talk going on? Can jokes be taken seriously?" In front of the tape, Larry Feldman's defense pales in comparison, and it is already a crookedness, and everyone can tell whether the content of the recording is a joke or not. After he stumbled to finish, most of the jury had already clasped their hands to their chests and gave them a cold look. At this point, the judge didn't even feel the need to continue. He looked at my "Does the defendant have anything else to say?" Mercerios replied loudly, "Yes, we still have important witnesses." Eric moved suddenly. "Sample, I can't kill you." Godot's eyes widened and he struggled to clench his arm, his face extremely uncomfortable. Then Jody Chandler went to court, and his appearance was quite different from what he was 10 years ago. Larry Feldman and Mathis didn't recognize each other at first, but after a closer look, their expressions changed dramatically, and they were more nervous than hearing the recording. Walking up to the witness stand, Jody Chandler faced the jury and the auditorium and said, "My name is Jody Chandler. Maybe some people don't know. Some people have forgotten, but I am a party to that case in 1993. In 1993, my father, Evan Chandler, sued Michael Jackson for sexually assaulting me, and with the help of attorney Larry Feldman and Dr. Mathis, we were able to settle with Jackson's team and eventually receive compensation. These are the information reported by the media, but the truth is not so, and I am here today to expose the hidden darkness. At that time, in fact, Mikcho never violated me. It was my father, Evan Chandler, who wanted to extort a sum of money from him, so he instigated me to do so. I didn't agree at first, because I saw Mylock as an idol, as a respectable person. But Evan kept seducing me and led me to Larry Feldman, and the two of them brainwashed me together. But even so, I didn't want to do it, and they took me to Mathis. I was locked up there for days, and Mathis, a psychiatrist, was hypnotizing me and injecting me with psychotropic drugs, and I was constantly in a groggy state where I didn't know what I was doing. In this case, the three of them worked together to brainwash me into saying those words. But later, after the out-of-court settlement, we canceled the lawsuit because we got the money and achieved our goal. The prosecutor at the time, Tom Schneider, who had committed violence against Mysak the other day, also approached us and wanted to continue the lawsuit, but my father refused. It's been 10 years, and I'm extremely guilty, but at that time I was controlled by drugs and couldn't help myself, and then I was in a boat, and in the face of overwhelming public opinion pressure, I was terrified and didn't dare to do anything. Until this incident repeated, I knew I couldn't indulge anymore and had to let the truth come out. Everything is fake, everything is a lie, and both Larry Feldman and Mathis are criminals who have long since turned their backs on their work ethic. It's just my buckle. He's always been burdened with infamy. That's not what he should bear, I'm sorry." After Jody Chandler finished speaking, the scene was in an uproar again. No one thought that the incident 10 years ago would be dug up and clarified. The reason why some people think that my buckle is a pedophile is because of the 1993 case. And if this matter is reversed, the black spots on my buckle's body will be completely non-existent. Similarly, Jody Chandler's testimony is the equivalent of sending Larry Feldman and Mathis directly to the guillotine. They are completely hopeless, and a thorough investigation awaits the two of them. Silence. The judge looked at Larry Feldman. Do you have anything to explain about Jody Chandler's testimony? The latter opened his mouth, but after all, nothing was said. Just as the judge was about to announce the adjournment, Mayor Sirios spoke again. Mr. Judge, we still have a piece of video evidence. The content of the video is naturally about Martin Basher's candid cliché. I'm just going to destroy him. Even if Michael Jackson has never done anything to molest children, I can make him like that through clips and footage. The public is the easiest to be fooled with. Martin, did Sony hire you to do this? Ha ha ha, guess. Maybe it won't be declassified until some people die. The picture finally freezes on Martin Basher's eerie and playful smile. Mr. Judge, through this video, we have reason to suspect that the Avisos and Martin Basher colluded to frame Jackson, Mayor Sirios said. And behind all this, it is likely that Sony Music is inseparable, so I have to apply to summon Martin Basher and Sony Music to be present for questioning. The significance of this video is no longer a few people on the other side, but to involve Sony Music, and it is necessary to let the storm of public opinion swallow it. The judge's face was solemn, and he suddenly realized that this child molestation case was no longer just about sexual harassment, but also involved huge financial interests and conspiracies. It's a very big hot potato, and the Santa Barbara City Court may not be able to continue. Looking around, after confirming that neither side had any intention of proceeding, the judge stood up and announced, due to the complexity of the case, the Santa Barbara City Court will conduct a detailed discussion with the jury to determine the time of the next trial, which will be notified to both parties. After the court was dismissed, Eric pulled out his finger and made a crunch sound. Godot's face turned red and punched him in the back in exchange for a kiss. Coming to Maiku, the two hugged each other. Maiku, it looks like the trial is going well. As long as the jury is not mentally retarded, we have won. Eric, thanks to you. As things stand, Janet Aviso has no chance of winning at all, not even 1%. In my experience, I'm afraid they will choose to withdraw the lawsuit voluntarily. Eric sneered. Withdrawing the lawsuit can't spare them, but a few of them are just small shrimps, and the key is Sony Music. Maiku, your popularity has been very high in the past month, and after the news of the trial spreads, it will definitely cause an explosion of public opinion. I'm ready for a tough battle with Sony.